Norwich Confidential with your hosts, Dr. Ben Hong, Bonnie Hong, and Mr. Bob Farwell.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Bonnie Hong.
And I'm Ben Hong.
And welcome to Norwich Confidential.
And we again have our political nights for the entire month.
It's our last
September,
right.
October.
It's our last political introduction to the candidates. Next Tuesday is Election Day.
Yes.
And we would love to see at least a 50% voter turnout. This is actually
probably more.
It would be wonderful. It would be
nice
wonderful
to have a whole voters going to that had registered, and if you haven't, by all means do, and go out and vote, because we really depend on everyone to participate in the process.
Right.
And so that when you go to the council meeting to observe these fellows, you'll be able to recognize who they are
and you
who
can
you
hold
voted
them.
for.
You can hold them to what they say. So, let's start. This is where tonight we have the Democratic candidates for Norwich City Council, and we will have them begin to introduce themselves and talk about at least the number one issue that they are concerned about and what they think a solution to that problem would be. So could we start with our incumbent?
Good evening. I'm Pete Desaulniers, and thank you very much for having us. I'm in my 4th term now. I'm looking for my 5th term, and my main thing is to go with economic development and to build our grand list. That can be done in a number of different ways, but the primary way is I'm holding it right here in my hand, and that's the economic development strategy plan that has been set forth by the mayor, and I believe is one of the things that we should follow and that we should help work and develop with, because without a plan, we just lay stagnant. Had the former administration gone through with a plan as it was started out to be a plan, and then in midstream change and go to a bond issue, we might be benefiting some of these things today. So I think it's very important that there is a plan in place and that we follow and help to develop the plan.
Thank you. Our next candidate, somebody that is, hopefully you'll be returning to our city council.
I hope so. Look forward to that opportunity. My name is Tucker Braddock, and I'm a candidate for the Norwich City Council. I have served on the council in the past 2 terms. I chose to get off of the council 2 years ago. I started a couple of initiatives that I felt like I could do better on the outside. One was the Thayer Marina project. Another was a piece of property that our city had owned for 11 years. And I just felt as if it should be in private hands, and it is in the process of going into private hands as we speak. And the third is the Shetucket Scrapyard down on the inner harbor of the Thames River, which I think as a passive park will create a lot of very positive synergy for our downtown and make it a lot more welcoming for businesses and people to be there. I think that it may inspire the Joel brothers from Plymouth, Massachusetts to do a little bit more on the marina. And those are some of the things that I have been working on off the council, and I'm looking forward to getting back on the council, because I think that there is a necessity to reach back into the Hartford area and see if we can get some brownfield opportunities, and I feel that this is one way that we're going to improve our economic development in our city, and our grand list is through the brownfields. We have 132 odd brownfields that we should be putting back into a useful, productive part of our city.
Thank you. Thank you, Tucker. Our other incumbent.
I'm Mark Bettencourt. I have served on the City Council now for 4 terms. I'll be running for a 5th. Certainly, economic development, the growth of the grand list is the goal, and should be the goal in any community. But how you get there, I think, is kind of really the issue. You know, what kind of specifics are you going to be able to provide? Obviously, there is a plan in place now that needs to be followed. But how you follow it, the mechanics of it, I think are equally important. In our case, we are in the process of hiring a new city manager. That is probably the most important piece of the puzzle right now that needs to come into place. We need somebody who has the experience and drive that will be able to do the things that are necessary and bring them to the council in a apolitical way, hopefully. And we avoid, and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that we get if the council members themselves are involved in certain processes. So that's really, I think, the most important piece of the pie right now, that we get the right person and get them in, and they need to learn the ropes, so to speak. So,
Thank you, Mark. Our next candidate.
Elanah Sherman. I'm running for office for the first time. I moved to Norwich by choice. I wanted to be here about 11 years ago. And I agree that the most critical issue is economic development, and I promote a kind of economic development that is livability-based. Livability economic development is development that first serves the needs of the people who live here. It needs to be rationally scaled. It needs to take account of assets, be asset-based, rather than try to make Norwich something that Norwich isn't. It is based on the natural assets that we have, our diversity, our arts community, our incomparable setting, and it places education smack in the middle of development. Education has to be, and I'm talking about public education, has to be conceived of as a critical piece of economic development.
Thank you, Elanah.
Thank you.
And our next candidate.
is Samuel Browning. I'm a local real estate lawyer. I was born in Norwich, went to some of the schools here, came back about 11 years ago to practice law here. We have to do economic development, obviously. Every town tries to do economic development. We need to get our tax rates from rising further because it dissuades people and businesses from coming into the community. Doing this will not be easy, but it's a journey we will have to take if we are to set ourselves up to compete with other towns and stem the flow of people who want to leave Norwich and want to sell their houses, which I think is really dispiriting and I think is harmful to the community.
Thank you, Sam.
Well, let me ask you a question as a group. And it is something that you'll have to show me in your perspective. Obviously, you've been in the council for some time. Pete, I've known you for a while. And of course, Tucker. And Mark, I've heard of you so many times. There is some disparity as far as perspective is concerned, because if we really ask you to describe to us what Norwich is like and how is it doing and where is it going, I'm sure, and I've heard that you all were very positive about that, especially what you are just telling us. But if you look at the other part of the citizens in Norwich, there's some other part, and all the other people that we have described or have invited to talk here, they really are saying, well, you know, Norwich needs to be repaired, needs to be done this way and that way and that way. So there seems to be a different perspective as to what Norwich is really like. So can you tell me today,
Well,
what do you think of Norwich and where do we stand right now?
I think Norwich has changed considerably over the years from when I first moved to Norwich. But I think, you know, many towns have changed. And because of the economic situation that happened throughout the country, you got to realize the Northeast was basically the last area to really feel the effects. So we're going to be the tail again coming out of that recession type of situation. But I think Norwich is a very diverse community in which it wasn't until such time as the casinos came in. once the
Became more
casino
diverse.
more diverse.
Yeah.
Is
We've
better-
always had
better.
some.
We've had a
We've
little
had
bit.
the French, we've had the Italians, we've had,
Well, especially the
you know,
Polish.
well, the Polish
The Cape Verdeans.
and the Cape
Right.
Verdeans.
But-
I mean, we've always had a diverse community.
But we are
Orleans.
more so diverse
Correct.
now because of that, and it's become quite an economic situation now because of that diversity. In that, with the education, it brings the cost of education. We have over 30-some different languages that are spoken in our schools.
Which is really why we should have expected and demanded more support at the state level for our education system. It's that issue is never really fully addressed.
No.
But I think part of the problem also is that, when you look at how some people perceive the city in very negative ways, and compared to how hard we've worked to make those differences, that perception actually is based on the fact that we used to have the average income in Norwich was around $90,000. Today, it's under 30.
Right.
Well, again, that's what Pete was saying, that there's more new citizens coming into Norwich, and they're starting out in Norwich.
I don't think it has
And,
anything to
no,
do with the
it-
citizens. It
So
has
the
to do with
question
our
is
job
really
market.
that whether diversity is a good thing for Norwich, or is it a bad thing for Norwich?
We have, living in Norwich for 47 years, I've seen a real heyday, and I've seen it kind of slide over the years. And what has slid has slid. It's now how are we going to change going further? How are we going to change going forward so that it's a better community for all? The things I'm hearing when I'm knocking on doors is that our taxes are too high. And my taxes are higher as well. I'm very happy living where I am. I wouldn't move for anything. I like this community. It has everything that I possibly could ask for. It has a park. It has a golf course. It has so many amenities that we can all appreciate. It has theater. It has it excites me. We have a starving downtown for business. It's there. We just have to fill and put business in there. And that's something that I would like to have a part of, being on our council.
What you just mentioned, basically, those images of Norwich, say 50 years ago, and of course when I came in about 40 years ago, our biggest issue was looking at the Reagan Hotel that's so dilapidated, and then of course the corner buildings, the roofs were caving in, and of course we still have the Red and Hughes building. Of course, we also talked about the marina, but those infrastructures are already there now. And so what we're looking at is that now you have built something, when are they coming in? And that, I think, is going to be your idea of what Norwich is going to be, I guess.
Mark, part of what that problem is that I don't find a lot of city support or code support for those buildings. Most people cannot, they'd be interested in putting a business in, but because of the landlords have not upgraded their business, those buildings to code, they expect a tenant to come in and do all of that work. Do you have a solution maybe to that problem?
I mean, through NCDC, of course, we did try the Downtown Bond Initiative, which part of that was code compliance monies. But that honestly does take some private investment. It's not a free ride. They were going to have to pay a significant
Those
amount of money
landlords,
to get those.
to me, have a pretty free ride.
Yep.
The ones that will not upgrade those buildings,
Right.
They have them as investments, and they hear everything you're saying, and okay, well, all those businesses are going to start coming in, and then I can sell my building that maybe is worth $80,000 at the most. I know one that wants over $700,000.
Well, Norwich has.
Could I?
Can I just?
Yes.
Go ahead.
But no, but sorry,
Make
Tucker.
that into a live
No, but
discussion.
the part of the problem, really, it is just what you said. Landlords are buying and holding and stuff. I
And they don't live in town.
Right, and there's absentee issues. But I mean, I toyed with the idea of trying to go to the state legislature for the land value, to look at a land value tax situation where we could participate in that kind of program. So, which would, you tax the value of the land, not the, improvements at a higher rate. So you could do that in a district, say a special taxing district or something like that. But you would need legislative authorization for that. I think.
Most of the downtown isn't a special tax.
Well, no. It is CCD,
No,
but
I
no,
don't
it's
mean
not.
that.
Yeah,
I
but
mean
it needs a
that-
special. You would have to create a special district to
I thought that
implement
was
kind
done
of
a
thing.
number of years ago.
No, well, New London had that opportunity. They didn't do it. So,
Okay.
but in this region, but here, we haven't had that opportunity to do something like that. So, but I mean, it's not an easy thing. It's something that would have to be phased in over time and those kind of issues. But the other problem,
A lot
though-
of the code compliance doesn't have to be phased in.
No, but they
You-
have to be willing to pay for it, and they're not willing to pay for it.
No, you have to have most of those codes have penalties.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah, but
don't
they're
see-
grandfathered in. The buildings are existing.
Okay, for example, a lot of them are substandard. It's not, every building should have an adequate bathroom.
Right.
Adequate facilities. You don't have plumbing that bursts so that the nail salon has to move out
The hair
because
salon,
their sewer system just
Right.
went.
I'm familiar, yeah.
Okay? I mean, you have a lot of code compliance that could be enforced.
Yep.
And we don't seem to even be doing that. When you can push a landlord to have those codes truly enforced, it's one of the reasons that the Wauregan got moved along, because all of their code violations were pointed out. So the current occupant had to shut down. There are a number of ways to do it. Elanah, have you some thoughts on this?
Well, I'm going to address a few things. First of all, a quick comment on downtown revitalization. At one time, downtown was designated a neighborhood revitalization zone, and an NRZ. I don't know if that designation is still in force. Perhaps okay, it was while the Wauregan was in the process of development, because development required an NRZ downtown. So I think an expansion of the NRZ movement in the city would be an extremely positive step. We were in Greenville last night for a debate, and the vitality of that community and the heart of that community, I believe right now, and this is how an NRZ should work. I was on an NRZ in Hartford. It needs to function as the heartbeat and the heart of a community. An expansion of the NRZs would be critical. I also think we have to address attitude, because unless we address attitude, we're not making any progress. And from my observation and interactions with people seem to be at one end or another of a pole. The majority of people are at the end of where total despair resides. They're apathetic, they don't think anything is going to change, they're disgusted with this, disgusted with that, and don't even want to think about solutions.
Nor do they vote.
Nor do they vote.
But they complain. They're the first ones to come to you and
We
yell.
have one of the lowest voting rates in the state.
Right.
On the other end of that pole is a minority of people who don't seem to see the intensity or recognize the intensity of the issues. And I hope that my candidacy can bring people together in a middle place where you absolutely recognize the crucial nature of the issues, but you're solution-based, community asset-based, sensible development-based.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
I'm going to try to narrow the question based on your comments. My answer is, as a real estate attorney, I'm very surprised that you would have any tenants considering moving into a building where they would have to lay out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to help the landlord meet code, when they could go to some other location and move into a location which requires much less renovation, much less maintenance. I mean, I've rarely seen businesses which are flushed with cash, which, okay, we want to spend $50,000 getting this up to, up to code. I don't know what is happening with that in Norwich. I know that we had this bond. It was out for was it 3.2 or 3.7 million?
3.38.
Okay, and it's been out about 6 years, and my inclination is we have to look at it, and either the program needs to be shut down and recreated, or it has to be seriously modified, because at this point I think that we've hit the point of diminishing returns.
I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, and that's one reason, that's exactly the reason why we don't get businesses going downtown. When they take a look and see that it's going to be their investment as a renter, even talking to businesses that are down there currently, you have 3 businesses on one of our downtown streets. 3. There's only 3 businesses on that entire street. Every single one of those businesses would gladly buy the building, each one of them. But the landlords won't sell them for a reasonable price.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that if it's great to look at a way to tax the land, but the problem is that, there should be a bigger penalty, because the loss of tax revenue to this community because of the neglect of a landlord is absolutely atrocious.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things, the issues that was missed when they created the bond issue, and it goes back to into the planning aspects of it. When you don't have a plan, and you just kind of like shoot from the hip, and you come up with bond issue, you forget certain things. And this was one thing that they forgot, that they had to deal with the landlords. They had to deal with the owners of the property in downtown. And consequently, that's what we have today.
Right.
Stop it.
This has been a problem, though, not just in the direct downtown. I mean, you talk about the urban core, but you go down Shipping Street,
Shipping
down
Street.
that way.
That's
I mean,
still
and that's
downtown.
exactly, well, you know.
I consider all
Yeah,
of
okay.
that.
All right,
Right.
but I mean, that particular area, I mean, you've got a lot of people that bought they don't have any carrying costs on the land. They've owned it for literally generations in some cases, and just waiting, hanging on to it, because it hasn't really assigned. There's no large carrying costs involved, so
let me
it doesn't
ask
get
you,
developed.
Let me ask you a question, because you all seem to know exactly what seems to be the problem, but there is something that's missing, and the thing that's missing, and being in the council for so many times,
That's
and
the question.
Tucker, you've been there, and that's leadership. We seem to be running around in circles. We have this bond, nobody seems to be carrying that law. There's no continuity of plan or of any program. So you've been the majority in the council for some time. So where is that leadership that seems to be missing?
When we worked hard to bring the bond about. We did a lot of door knocking and radio shows for people to vote in a positive way for the bond. But once we had the bond in place, it took a year before we could make it street ready. Now, I'm not sure what happened, why that took so long. It was my understanding that we would get a bond in place, and NCDC would then, we appointed NCDC as the administrator of the bond, but they weren't quite ready to put it into the street, into the hands of the people who needed it. And that's one of the other problem I want to go back to. I think one of the things we do not do in our community is market what we have. We have a lot of things that we can market, and we're not marketing. We're not going out and knocking on doors and saying, would you have an interest in moving into our downtown community?
Well, let's start with what some of the real needs of the downtown are. We had a public forum, 3 of them, that talked with business leaders and citizens. They came up with a whole list. We need a tailor. They talked about every single service that is missing in this community today that they would like to see downtown.
And
Because
they've
I think
talked
the
about that
mindset-
in this show, too.
Because I think the mindset of the people now, it was where they were moving out and expanding out into rural areas. People now, and I don't know if it's because of the baby boomers of our age, but even the younger people, they want to move back into the cities now. So they want to move back in. They don't want to have to worry about transportation. They don't have to worry about cars. They don't have to worry about anything. They want to be able to walk out their door and go to work, come back in, and do their little shopping and stuff like there. You're looking at going back to almost a downtown that we had years ago.
And part of the problem is you have more rejection of the corporate entities. Everybody knows that with Walmart, yeah, you can get cheap goods, but those cheap goods are costing us as taxpayers because
Right.
we have to give corporate welfare to the people, to
For the
Walmart.
employees.
We have to pay for their health care.
Yeah.
We have to pay for their food through food stamps. So if we have to pay corporate welfare, a lot of people are beginning to recognize this. So they would like to be able to, walk to the grocery store.
Well, again, it goes back to what I'm asking you, Tucker, and the rest of you, and that is leadership. We have a Democrat as a mayor.
Now.
We have.
Yeah, now we have. And we also now have a mayor
Didn't have it
who
then.
has a plan in place.
And
You know how many
and
plans there are,
There
Peter?
have
But
been,
Ben's question is right. So where is the leadership to implement that plan?
it's in place now.
One thing that,
The plan's in place, great.
4
And we're
years
working.
And what are you going to do to get those business buildings ready so that Tucker can go out and talk to those people that want to open up a restaurant? There is not one restaurant-ready building downtown, not one.
There is one. It's on Main Street, and I've approached the lady about it, but
Oh, you're right, there is one.
there is one.
Yes.
But,
And that was a lot of work that the owner of that building did in
Exactly,
renovating
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
But,
right.
4 years ago, when I was running for the council position, there was something that kind of bothered me, and that was, if you're coming from Norwich, Connecticut, or Boston, Massachusetts, you're coming into our community, you don't really know how to function in our community. And I thought about creating a booklet, a guide, if you might, and it came out, it was redeveloped in Greater Norwich Area Chamber of Commerce at an economic development meeting, and Jason and I have been working on this. It's now ready for publication, so that when someone, and it would be in hard print. It's also going to be on the internet, but it tells people step by step who and where and what to ask when they come into our community, so that when they do get here, they're not going to be turned away. We want them to stay, but if they do leave with questions, they can take this booklet with them and study it at home.
Have
and
all the department heads that
it
are,
has everything in it.
but they all know that they have to be completely upfront, because that's been part of the problem.
Well, that's been part of the problem, truthfully. But, I mean,
That's right.
Part of the real issue is management of the city, to me. You know, so, and to be honest with you, I mean, I was pushing to remove the city manager for the last couple of years. So finally we did it. We got enough on the council that, agreed with the situation. We needed to make the change because, among other things, that wasn't getting done. Those kind of things weren't getting done. There's no initiative, no drive. Okay, a competent administrator, yeah, he was, but, and a nice guy, but.
Nice guy.
Nice guy, but. That's not what we need right now.
Right.
We need somebody that's gonna push the staff and employees to do what they needs to get done. And to be perfectly honest with you, that in the last several years, certainly, and even longer, that hasn't happened.
Right.
But Mark, having said that,
Just speak up, please.
Okay.
I'm not the teacher here.
having
You
said
notice
that,
I'm speaking up when I have.
Okay.
the council and the mayor has a responsibility of saying exactly what we want that city manager to do.
Correct.
And-
To a point, yeah.
To a point. I mean, he or she has to have credentials coming into this
We hire a
position.
professional manager that has, by charter, the ability to bring stuff to the council. There's a reason
right.
why it's written that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So, personally, all of us that sit in the council, except for the mayor, and of course, this is the first time we've had, really a full-time mayor, technically, because
Please
I
don't
know,
tell
I know,
me
I
that.
know.
I was
well,
full-time.
Well,
I set that office
yeah.
up, and I was there full-time, so
The,
I
but-
understand what
yeah,
you're
but I
saying.
mean,
Go way before
technically
your
the
time.
mayor on top of
Way
the
before your
title. Yeah. Many, many, many years ago that was. But the, no. But the, but truthfully, I think the responsibility is with the manager to make sure that we get these things get done on a day-to-day basis. As you well know, really the very little difference in what the old city council president and the mayor has for authority. Very little difference.
The difference is
The
that
economic
the entire
development piece.
council and the mayor
Yeah.
can tell the manager, we need to have this
True.
streamlined. I don't want the building department having something different and having them have to jump through extra hoops after they go through the planning department.
And these kind
And
of
that
conversations
happens.
happen, you know, but the reason he's not there now is because
He couldn't
nothing
do it.
happened.
Right. he
I'd like to
couldn't
make
do
a
it.
comment.
So,
Sure.
I think when you're on a panel and you're not an incumbent, you're at and have never been an incumbent, you're at a certain disadvantage talking about certain kinds of issues because you don't know the backstories. However, this is how I'm going to respond to this. A city council can function in a maximum capacity, but if you do not have engagement with the community, you are not going to get things done. We have a woeful lack of participation on our boards and commissions by people who are not white males. We need to bring in our cultural communities, and we need to bring in people of different ages in order for this city to work well. Part of any community development is engagement and that kind of diversification. And you don't just do it by publishing notices in a paper. You
No.
do it by going out into your communities. Door knocking should not stop with campaigning. You need to be out in your communities.
Or visibility, having a table at an event like Celebrate Cultural Diversity, where you can have the police are there, we have the fire department there, recruiting.
One of the things
So-
I think would be a great idea are departmental open houses. Where
I read that in
where different departments open up to the public, talk about what they do, the stresses of what they do, why they do it, and listen to public response.
Okay. Sam?
Well, yeah, the other thing that I want to amplify what you just said, like Pete initially said, that we now have a lot of people from different culture coming in, and the first thing that they really are not so sure of is how will I be accepted in the community, and how will I go through the city government, and that the city government would be the last thing that they will go to ask questions, because of the cultural background that they have, whether they had been inhibited from doing that, or there's a fear of doing that.
Fear.
So yes, we do need to reach out to those community that are just starting out.
But surprisingly, almost all of the businesses downtown are run by a minority population, whether it's the Haitian or the Spanish, Vietnamese. I mean, they're for the majority of all of our downtown businesses. So it's very interesting. Let's go.
Sam wants to say something.
Oh, I was just listening.
Well, let me
It's been a long campaign.
let me give our telephone number, so if anybody that's watching wants to get in on the conversation, please give us a call at 860-885-8532. Besides voting for you gentlemen, there's also a referendum coming up. Could I hear from you, is there any significant item on the referendums? There's 18. Is there any significant item that is not just a cleanup of the charter that you're concerned about? Sam?
I have disagreements with some of the other panelists, but the two was, I think, number 7 and number 18. And I don't have a problem with 18, which gives NPU the ability to sign contracts longer than 10 years. I have had the position that I do not wish to see us give up oversight authority over NPU. We have precious little as it is, and it involves bonding authority. And once again, I'm sure Mark will tell you why he thinks it's a good idea.
Is
but-
that number 7?
Yes.
Yeah.
The bonding for Norwich Public Utilities
NPU, yeah.
to bond
From
for,
10 to 25 years.
No, that's 18. That's
to
the
bond without going to
contract.
referendum.
Right.
Because, but that was, my understanding was that was only for those bonds that are being paid for on their own.
Right.
So you're
That's
not
right.
spending any money until you are,
Well, the
I would
difference...
think, I think that if you get a couple canny lawyers in the room, people, and they say, okay, how do we really define that term? You could come up with some very imaginative ways to push the definition, and I'm worried about it because I don't know where it will end.
The difference
That's
is
'cause they're lawyer.
NPU can already come through the council. They have to still come to the council and float revenue bonds.
Right.
All right, at any amount. I mean, we have 2 on the agenda. If we're, the redos, we've got $11 million sitting there on the agenda for the next council meeting, I think, whatever it is. So a significant amount of money. Anyway, so we can do that at any time. But the problem is, as you know, revenue bonds cost more in interest than do regular governmental bonds based on the full faith and credit of the city of Norwich. So what all this will do is allow NPU to come to the council. They still have to come to the council. They can't do it on their own. And do these bonds without having to go to referendum. That's all. And it's only, and the only way that happens is if the way it's worded is if it's being paid for by revenue generated from the project. So,
Such as the gas
So
lines.
yes, so it's
Right,
like
the
the
li-
extension of
like
the
the
gas lines, and extension of that business, and those kind of things, can be paid for, in that way. But otherwise, they owe, and anything, if you're going to pay for it at that lower level, it's got to go to referendum. So any normal bonding thing, like say we talk about the police station, well, that's not going to generate revenue.
Right.
So, that has to go to referendum. But when they have
I thought the number 7 only was the...
for NPU.
Only NPU.
Only NPU.
Right.
Correct.
It had nothing to
Has
do
nothing to
with...
do with anything. I was just
Okay.
using that for an example.
Okay.
But so to me, I mean, I want NPU to grow, to have that ability to expand their business
Right.
and stuff. And I don't want to say unfettered, but the council
In a
would still,
faster way,
yeah, in a
right.
faster way, and the council would still have oversight. It's not like they can do it on their own.
Right.
So there's still got to be public hearings. There's still got to be a council vote. So it just wouldn't be referendum.
Just cutting out the step of having it be on
And
the
it would,
referendum.
right, and it would only be for NPU on revenue-based type
Right.
stuff. So for me,
Just,
the council
You're not at
supports it.
court. Just go ahead.
I still remember sitting in the Norwich City Council chambers when approximately 30, and I may be a little bit off, ordinances were disabled, which gave NPU additional authority in terms of put less oversight, removed oversight mechanisms over how much they could raise their rates. And my jaw hit the floor. I was listening to this, and I just I do not. It's hard to, the council's giving up supervisory authority, and I'll just leave it at that.
And that was all done because state statute had changed.
Right.
That was all that was. All that was
the way
cleaning,
that it was
cleaning
changed is
things
because
up.
now the NPU have their own independent
Right.
group, CMEC. And for that reason, I'm not really sure how it will interact with you as a council, because
We only interact with it usually through NPU or approval of contracts as necessary, that kind of thing. So.
But Norwich Public Utility is a fantastically run and operated, I certainly wouldn't want, and I'll talking, the council to make decisions that's going to affect NPU like that, and down to the operations of the
Right.
NPU. I mean, those people are professionals. They know, they have their own commission.
Right.
They know what's going on, and that's important. And
However, to talk about the commission, I think going back to what Elanah said, we have not updated a lot of these commissions and boards. You have vacancies there. On almost every single board and commission, we have vacancies, so.
No, it's not like a, it's
Not
not
like
as bad
it-
as it was.
not like it
but
used to.
It's improved a lot.
It's
Tony.
improved.
Yeah.
We've,
Really,
we've,
it really
ti-
has improved
we've
a lot.
tightened it up a
Considerably.
lot over
There
the
are
past
some
year.
vacancies.
There are
certainly,
some,
but-
but
So-
it's been tightened up a
And
lot.
we,
So
and we
what
get
was-
them on a regular basis.
So what was 18? What's the referendum 18?
18 is, that's the one I don't have any objection to. That's basically giving NPU the ability to sign contracts going over 10 years in length, going up to 25 years.
Public utilities?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
only NPU.
NPU.
So the.
Do they
the-
also, before they sign the contract, have to have it approved by the city council?
That one, I don't think.
I
I
don't
think
think
that
so.
would be.
Well, you're,
So-
you're talking here of signing a long-term contract with
And so you'd be talking about like
with the power-
service, service, agreement, stuff that may involve infrastructure,
That's
that people
correct.
have to recoup costs over a longer time, that kind of stuff. So.
The
So
thing
if you-
the thing that,
Similar to all the oil tank, the pipes that are being stored to,
I can't tell you, I don't know about that, so
I
I
think
can't
it's-
Or
honestly
the
tell you. But I
lands
mean, it's,
that-
but obviously costs
It's,
have
it's the
increased
power
and stuff, so
vendor
yeah,
that
so.
they're supposed to
So
contract with.
a lot of these types of things really have to go on beyond a 10-year limit.
I think there's an issue where our NPU, which is a great asset to our community, it's because it's owned by the citizens of Norwich, in theory, is that this may have a double edge to the sword. If we're reaching out, say, to other communities, let's say Franklin or Sprague or
you mean Norwich Public
public
Utilities?
utilities.
Which we are for sewer.
Which we are.
That's
that-
going to impact,
It's going to, I think it may have an impact on other people coming into our territories. And-
well, it also impacts our ability to, for certain rates. Once we start going outside of Norwich, it's going to affect our rates.
Well-
As we regulate electrically, I don't think electrical we can do too much there. I mean, we're where we're at. But I think the gas business, I think, can be expanded. And the water already has, so.
Yeah, I think the electric power is already regulated through CMEC, and they were the ones that made the contract for that. But for gas, that's Norwich owned. That's basically Norwich NPU's territory as to how much it would contract it out. So,
Right.
But that,
Part of the
Norwich.
reason- That's
and-
part of the reason why you see a lot of these pipeline projects going
Right.
on now.
That's right.
And obviously, we're part of that, and
And-
we want to,
and
expand our,
The
we're
capacities.
expanding our gas business,
Yes.
and we certainly want to expand our ability to bring the product in, so we have it to sell, and especially
Certainly.
during high, demand season.
You'll notice that these gas lines that are coming into our community and or through our community, in some of them, we do not get any benefit whatsoever from. No one is saying anything about clear cutting that land, and we have absolutely no benefit whatsoever from that project.
And we could it could have a very disastrous effect environmentally on us for a number of reasons. I mean, I would love to see us, I understand why we're expanding natural gas, but at the same time, that it's not going to help us become a green community. You have a very limited amount. We've had the wind power as an experiment for a number of years that actually proved successful. There's a solar.
Yeah,
The
they've made some, what I've been hearing regarding Norwich and wind power, really the only place where it really might be viable is up in the Plainville area.
Well,
But
they
again,
had
that
an
is really
experiment
not our
one.
control
Yeah.
anyways, because
No.
NPU really cannot generate power to feed the Norwich,
Not
consumer.
Not
They have to
anymore.
Not enough area.
Exactly. So I think we're getting out of our
All right, but
discussion
my
on it.
point about NPU was downtown.
Right.
And
Well, one thing that happened with NPU, which was a positive thing, is that there was a charge that was going for a business who would make the connection.
Reconnection charge, yeah.
yes,
Excuse me?
Yeah, the connection charge.
Yeah, the connection charge. And that has been reduced by 50%.
but at 50%, how much is that? That's still, it's
It's
still,
$1,250 a unit.
Yeah, but it's still a positive, thing to have happen when NPU and our community is looking at a $100 million expansion of the wastewater on Hollyhock Island. It is still a very positive thing that is happening.
Bonnie,
yes.
could I piggyback onto your mention of environmental consciousness. One of my ideas is the establishment of an open space commission. We have development, we think about development always as building something on our land. I'm not sure with the number of empty buildings we have that we should be thinking about building more. I do think we need to have an open space commission so that we monitor where we would like parcels of open space. When open space is available, we can take advantage of state programs to buy parcels, to establish, for example, community gardens and new heritage walkways under the Urban Greens program. And in the NRZ movement, there are wonderful resources for helping neighborhoods create green environments and do green development.
Well, that's very good, because what we're going to do now, we only have a few minutes left, and let's get down to what are the most common complaints that we have coming from the citizens. We've tried to cover leadership, we've tried to cover accountability, and what your vision would be for the near future. But there are a few things, of course, that when it boils down to this, people in the street would ask us, and that is, well, how come our taxes are so high? And number two, what's going on with Chelsea Garden that is all over the place? And
That's not,
well,
I haven't heard one thing about Chelsea Garden.
Well,
Not one.
so let's,
Not one.
But bringing up Chelsea Garden,
yes.
and I asked the question about, the comment was that no one is saying a word about the swaths that are being cut through our community for a gas line, of which we will not appreciate one bit.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we signed up for that.
We-
That is how
We
this
did,
community.
we did talk about it on our show.
Okay.
We had the women that were. Do you remember the?
Yes.
There were two organizations here. Both of them were talking about the problem with fracking
Okay.
and fracking waste. The fact that Connecticut is letting this pipeline go through, it's going all the way up through to the port in Maine
They
for
have,
export. We have
already,
such an abundance of oil and
this is through the government.
Natural gas.
Natural gas, right.
Right. So anyways, let's talk about why people would ask this same question over and over, like why are our taxes so high?
What I'm asked is, why are our taxes so high? But the more common question I'm asked is, I don't feel I have a voice in city government. But in answer to the tax
Yeah.
question.
because we
yes.
have so little time.
Yeah.
I think that
Taxes.
that's
If you
they-
diversify your tax base, taxes go down. If you diversify through smart development, there's less of a dependency on property taxes. All distressed communities or communities that hover on that boundary have incredibly high property taxes because they don't have any other source of revenue.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Is it possible for the Norwich City property tax to go down?
Yes.
Yes,
So
it is.
tell us your plan.
Well,
Nutrition,
like I say,
economic
you
development.
hear, exactly, and you hear, you say, it's been on the Democratic, well, I just happen to have a few notes here and saying, what's going on as far as, the infrastructure and construction. We have brownfield grants, $670,000 for Terminal Way, Shipping Street, Uncas Leaf Heritage Group. Panema Mill funding of $14.2 million, includes bonds and loans. It was going to revitalize Tackville. Sewer system upgrade improvements over $100 million. New gas lines, tourism and arts, heritage groups collaboration of $150,000, which opened a new visitor center and a development for the trail system, which is very successful. We have many people of that. We have Norwich creates a new collaboration of the arts organization. We have the gallery at the art space we opened. New businesses. We had the Norwich Bottling Company, Sheffield Pharmaceuticals, Stairs expansion was going on. Encore just right, all dialed up. These Two Guys Brewery, Hop and Dragon expansion downtown, CrossFit Backpack, Poppy and Rise, and there's others that are coming into downtown and also into the.
So you're
So
talking
this-
economic development.
Economic development is starting to happen. We're seeing it.
Right.
And again, it's stuff, some of the stuff has been started. I mean, prior is working up. But like I'm saying, we're getting hit. The
Those are-
Democrats are getting hit with all this stuff. We're saying, as another example I'll give you, is that the Democrats are saying, or they're saying, our opponents are saying, we don't care about education. Well, that's baloney, because we raised the tax mainly this year to give to the education, and both Republicans voted against it. So who's for it, the Republicans or the Democrats?
The state has just offered $100 million in brownfield grant opportunities. We, myself, Jimmy Quarto, and Mark went to this meeting. And we're volunteers. We did not see any paid people from our city at that opportunity.
Not one,
Not one. And it was at COG. The DECD was there,
right,
and that made me very sad,
right,
because we need that brownfield money.
exactly.
We did the vibrant community study and pinpointed all of these brownfields. We need the money coming in.
I think that when you look, I know that there has been, all of that's like the groundwork. I can remember one of our governors who did all of the work in infrastructure, really started getting our highways done, and everybody, when he left office, everybody said he really didn't do anything. You saw the economy go up as soon as the infrastructure was finished. And it was really because of that governor.
Yep.
It's the same thing. The same thing is true here. I think that the efforts that have been made to really push economic development in the downtown have been wonderful. I just think that, like as Ben said, we need somebody, the council, to be more outspoken, especially about the buildings. You don't have to let them get away with it. In that way, I think when people say they don't have a voice in government, that's a lot of what they're talking about. But it is also their own fault. Voice in government depends on you getting out to vote. You've been listening to the candidates. You know which ones are working really hard for our city, the direction they want to move the city in. And it's essential that if you want a voice in this government, you get out and vote Tuesday, November 3rd. But I think that it's not just knowing what direction you're going in and how hard you've been working for that. There are a lot of issues. One, again, I hope that the council will be more responsive in the future. I've had a problem in the past with having council members be responsive. So
Well, let's have our final say from each of our candidates.
you each have about just a minute.
Yes.
Well, I'll go back to say, the vote for me, I'm going to continue to push the economic development of the city and follow a plan, because I believe that the only way you're going to be successful is to follow a plan. And once you follow a plan and you move through and you put all your ducks in a row, and this plan that's in place now includes the education, it includes NCDC, it includes all the heads of the departments, and so everyone has a stake in this, and everyone knows it. And it's proven that in Greenville, and you have to have the community involved, because that last walkthrough we just did with Greenville, all that stuff got done just like that, and it didn't cost extra taxpayers money.
Right.
So
But
involvement.
if they want to read this, it is on the Norwich City
Yes, as far
website.
as-
They
yeah,
just
they
go
can-
on,
They can get the information.
right. The whole plan is right there
It's
for
there,
you
so
to
you
read.
you can lay it out, you can see it. So the Democrats are hard at work for you.
Tucker.
Thank you. I'm asking for your vote again, and it would be my intention to look at our city's business structure, the economic development, how to make it better than what it is. We certainly deserve better than what we have. We deserve the architecture that's in our downtown. We deserve that architecture to be filled with people. And I think that if you have something in our downtown that is eccentric, that you cannot buy or find anywhere else, then people will come here to buy it. I think we have to have something that is still affordable, so that when people do come here to buy that product, they can afford it. And we have a cluster of restaurants in the downtown now. We need other businesses there to go along with those restaurants so that while they're waiting for their seats in the restaurant, they can do some shopping. I think economic development will change a lot of our woes that we have in our community with our social programs, with our green space, with our education, with our housing.
Okay,
Oh,
So, we don't have a lot of time left. Mark,
You keep going. Mark, you're having a great
Certainly,
time.
yeah, certainly it's been, we've gone through a long period of an economic downturn. There hasn't been a lot of money to invest in some of these buildings privately. I mean, that's a fact. But some of these issues go back generations, so it's not a recent phenomenon. You know. So, but I think Kate, the point you made regarding what this, the city hasn't enforced some of this stuff and hasn't gone out of its way to do it, I think is a valid point. And it goes to another issue where are we allocating our resources? Do we need to consider, I always thought we honestly needed some more resources placed in that section of the budget, but they were under direction from the manager not to, well, we're not going to say anything about that or whatever. So, those kind of things have been going on. So, quickly, I mean, that's true. But my daughter works at one of the new downtown businesses, so I'm a big fan of these guys. So that they're doing
Best
very well.
food in town.
Yeah, it's great.
It is.
It's fantastic. So
Okay, Elanah?
I'll give them a plug.
Yes.
I come out of the disability rights movement. And in the disability rights movement, you always look at assets, and you always look at problems as opportunities. There are so many assets in the city. That's what we have to base our development on. We also have to look very, very seriously at blight. Blight is an extremely important issue in the city. We need a full-time blight officer. As far as taxes, the Republicans don't own this issue. All the Democrats are concerned about taxes. Through consolidation, through attrition, through good, smart development, and through collaboration that has expectant collaboration with our department heads, we can handle the budget. But it's a challenge.
Thank you. Sam?
The issue which I think I'm going to focus on the most if I'm elected is what we're going to do with West Main Street. And I disagree with some of the other members on this panel because I see West Main Street as the future of our economic development. It's where we have the most commercial space which people want to move into because they don't face certain issues which they would developing downtown. I think we're going to have to figure out whether we want roundabouts on that road. I am concerned not because I don't think they will work technically, but because I think that some people will not want to use them just because they are a new thing and they are somewhat awkward. And we need to make a decision as a community what to do with this. The state of Connecticut will be happy to put them in place, but we need to decide whether we as a community will buy into this or not, because these will be very time intensive to put in, and you don't want to block West Main Street off for, say, months at a time, because I fear for the safety for the economic health of some of the businesses along that route. I recognize this may be unpopular with some other people, but I am happy to point that out because it's crucial.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want a minute?
No. No. You go
Okay,
ahead.
I think that, I think both Ben and I agree with you that it is economic development that is the key to getting our taxes lowered.
And also, of course, leadership and accountability.
leadership.
You have been a majority in council. People look up at you and saying, if there's going to be somebody to blame, it's going to be you. But
Because
if
you're
it's
not
going to
yelling
be-
loud enough.
That's right.
You're not demanding enough.
We fired
and-
the guy. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's a very, very good
No, what
point.
else would happen?
We do have to wind it up. I want to thank all of you for being
He
here.
resigned.
We hope that everyone gets out and votes on Tuesday. We'd love to see a great turnout. And we will be back next week. We do want to thank both Greg and Mike, our crew, and especially our guests.
Thank you.
Peter
Thank you.
Desaulniers, Tucker Braddock, Mark Bettencourt,
Elanah.
Elanah Sherman,
Sherman.
and Sam Browning, the Democratic candidates for Norwich City Council.
And don't forget to go out and vote.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.